This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. I'm John Bailey, the Citizen Net Reporter, and this is White Plains Week. And I'm joined by the Dean of Journalism for the City of White Plains, Jim Benerofe, and the anchor for all seasons, Peter Katz. And before we go any further, I want to recognize that yesterday, November the 22nd, was the 55th year since John F. Kennedy, the president, was assassinated in 1963, November 22nd. That's the way the papers looked, one of the most famous front pages
of the
ever.
New York Times ever. Yeah. Something to treasure and save. Actually, we have saved a copy of that.
Somewhere in the house.
Thousands of people,
right.
Hundreds of thousands.
Jim, where were you when you heard it?
I was crossing the street to go back to my apartment from my class at NYU.
Mm-hmm. And then I was going back to class at Ohio Wesleyan University on that Friday. It happened on a Friday. And what you had a unique experience.
Well, I was working at the WHDH radio and television in Boston. And actually, that station was very close with the Kennedys. The management there knew many of the Kennedy people and had a special relationship with the family based on their time in Boston and the time in Hyannisport. So it was a double shock for the people I was working with.
Mm-hmm. Jim, the headlines.
And here are the headlines for November 23rd, 2018. Temperatures chill Thanksgiving in the Great Northeast. The figures are in on the first 2 months of red light camera operations in White Plains, and we make a profit. Lettuce scare kills Thanksgiving salads. Westchester County approves more affordable housing on Lake Street. President Trump wonders if Arabian King actually called for Khashoggi killing. CIA says he did. Amazon headquarters in Long Island City pinpointed by City. People to be Heard presents a 28-minute special with County Executive George Latimer explaining the 2019 county budget. White Plains Week shows you King Kong on stage. And it was, as we said, 55 years ago, November 22nd, when President John Kennedy was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas.
Right, and now we go to the White Plains Week Real News Real March of Time, and the thermometer marched down to 12 degrees this morning when we were doing the show. It was 20 degrees yesterday in the morning, and it called for a turkey log. And there we did it. And it was so cold in the house that we had to do that.
Kind of like watching Channel 11 on Christmas Eve, isn't it?
Yes, and we should have some hymns playing, right?
Yeah.
But it is cold out.
Hey, you know,
Not ready.
They got through the parade all right. The balloons were able to fly.
Yeah.
It wasn't windy enough to force them not to fly the balloons yesterday. But we have seen this rather dramatic, rather early dip in the temperature.
Yes.
Yes.
And over the weekend, it's supposed to go back up into the mid-50s.
Oh, well, let's enjoy while we can. Break out the barbecue once more. But speaking of breaking out, it was announced this week by the city that the first figures are in on red light camera operations. Tom Soik, in an interview with the Journal News, did reveal that the red light cam violations since September the 1st, 7,068. That's a lot of tickets. 2,600 in September, 3,969 in October, 499 through November the 7th. Now, the projection for 1 year would be about 53,000 tickets.
Now, keep in mind, they're only doing these cameras at maybe a half dozen intersections around town. So
they're already buying 24 more back.
So anyone who says the money is not a consideration here may end up with a Pinocchio-like nose if they keep saying that.
Just projecting these first figures, we come up with the fact that it costs the city about $1.3 million for the cameras, and the revenue would be about $3.6 million if people start being more careful. So
now some of those first
$250,000 profit.
The first 7,000 were not all tickets. They did give warning notices to about 2 or 3,000.
No, that 7,000 is since September 1st. Those are live tickets.
Well, I
August
believe,
we're not.
Oh, okay, sorry.
August we're not.
All right.
Yeah. But they were very careful to mention that. So they had the grace period, and you get 0.4 second of grace. 0.4. So get those brakes in shape.
And you could just see the driver sitting there counting 1, 2, 3, 4.
But anyway, it is in effect, but so far 50%.
If you're going to make a right turn on red at one of these intersections that has the cameras, be sure that your wheels come to a full and complete stop.
Very careful.
The difference between stopping and not stopping is not stopping is running the red light.
Right, and there was another actual scare. It was national this week, and that was lettuce. That was a shot of some lettuce that the WPCNR commissary bought, and we had to return.
Actually, it's romaine lettuce.
Romaine lettuce.
Yes, but you have
it's
to
not all lettuce.
You have to check ingredient
to see
mixes.
what's in. If there's a mix,
like
yes,
there's
see
green
what's in
romaine,
there.
so we had to take it back. And
Yeah, it's rare for the federal government to issue warnings of don't use an entire food group, but that's what they've done here. So they say romaine lettuce, regardless of where it comes from, just don't use it. Period.
Right, and yesterday they announced that they've sort of pinpointed it to California.
The source of the contamination
coming from, but they haven't pinpointed the actual place. Now, let's see, speaking of pinpointing.
Yes, the county has pinpointed a place for more affordable housing.
Yes.
Now, this has been in the
Affordable
works for a while, but it wasn't until this past week that it actually moved into the realm of real reality when the county's Board of Acquisitions and Contracts approved buying land from the Mount Hope AME Zion Church on Lake Street in White Plains and then leasing it back to the church for development of affordable housing. This is for the affordable housing project that's being put together by that church, and the county will purchase the vacant lot the church owns at 65 Lake Street for $2.1 million and then deed it back to the church for $1. There will be restrictive covenants only allowing the property to be developed as senior housing. The apartments would have to be classified as affordable for the next 50 years after they open. The plan calls for 48 one-bedroom and 8 two-bedroom apartments to be made available to senior citizens ages 62 and up. At the County Board of Acquisition and Contracts meeting this week, the item was a last-minute addition to the agenda by Budget Director Lawrence Sewell. On the board are Sewell Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins and Board of Legislators Chairman Ben Boykin.
I move to add item 19, ID 65793, which is a resolution authorizing the county to enter into any and all agreements necessary to purchase and convey approximately 3/4 of an acre of real property located at 65 Lake Street in White Plains, all in support of a fair and affordable housing development that will affirmatively further fair housing.
Is there a second to this motion?
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The secretary shall add item 19 to the agenda.
And that was, as pro forma as it gets in rubber stamping something, because after they added that to the agenda, there were 2 items on the agenda, and they voted their quick approval of both items, and the whole meeting took about 4 minutes.
Yes, White Plains pioneered that technique, I believe, haven't they? Yes, right. And now we also want to move along to something we talked about last week, and that was the Amazon move. We might want to take a look at this. This is the way Long Island City looked last week from satellite, and we learned this week through an article in the New York Times that the actual place is going to be right off Roosevelt Island at a place called Annibal Basin, which is part of the rezoned area that the city of New York has set aside.
Well, yeah, people sometimes ask, is that animal, vegetable, or mineral?
Yeah. Right. Well,
Sorry.
it'll be interesting. We are now awaiting.
No, actually, now the Amazon thing did make some news this week when the New York Times and some others were highly critical of the state and the city giving so much to Amazon in order to induce them to come here. And it actually encouraged Governor Cuomo, among others, to fire back, saying that the New York Times, for one, just doesn't understand how important this is and what the benefits will be.
You have to be a dummy to turn this down. That's what he said, right?
Basically.
No, he didn't.
So,
basically.
Well, that's what, in essence, yes.
Well, it doesn't look like that is going to really affect things too much down there in that spot. But speaking of affecting things, Miss President Trump affects things every day.
Well, it's Thanksgiving weekend, and President Trump is hard at work at the White House. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. He's actually at his property in Mar-a-Lago, enjoying the holiday there.
Played golf with Jack Nicklaus.
With his companies being paid handsomely by U.S. taxpayers for use of the Mar-a-Lago facilities. Before leaving the White House on Wednesday, he answered some questions from reporters. He again came to the defense of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who the CIA says it has evidence ordered the murder of Washington Post columnist Amal Khashoggi. And he used lies and gross exaggeration when making excuses for not having the U.S. do anything to take a stand against such a despicable act. He said he puts economic interests before moral leadership, and then grossly lied about those economic interests. The lies included the amount of Saudi military weapon purchases from the U.S., which he says are more than $100 billion, but it's actually only $15 billion. He talks about the Saudi purchases creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, and they may be responsible for maybe 1,000 or 2,000 jobs. He says the Saudis will start buying military weapons from the Russians and Chinese if they don't buy it from us. Actually, the Saudis are stuck with us because the Russian and Chinese equipment is not compatible with all of the American equipment they already have, so they just cannot switch suppliers in midstream. He talks about Saudi Arabia keeping down the price of oil for U.S. citizens. Actually, Saudi Arabia has been trying to get OPEC to cut production to raise the price of oil. And anyway, the Saudis actually contribute only 11% of the oil used by the U.S. Now, there's more U.S. shale oil produced than all the oil provided to the U.S. by the Saudis. And the president also denies being in financial deals with the Saudis. Now, actually, Trump has been doing business with them for decades. For example, there's a prince, a former minister in the Saudi government and a member of the Saudi royal family, who reportedly lives in a full-floor Trump Tower apartment. Another Saudi royal family member owned a 10,500 square foot condo at the Heritage at Trump Place, valued at $48.5 million. When Trump's businesses tanked in the 1990s, the prince agreed to take majority control of New York's Plaza Hotel from Trump to bail him out with the banks. A Saudi purchased Trump's 300-foot yacht to help bail him out when his Atlantic City casinos
when it was
tanked.
sinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, here's Trump himself.
The Washington Post, in a statement, put out a statement. They've said that you're putting your personal interests, your commercial interests.
Well, I have nothing to do with Saudi. Just so you understand,
Yes.
I don't make deals with Saudi Arabia. I don't have money from Saudi Arabia. I have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. I couldn't care less. And I will tell you, and as most of you know, being president has cost me a fortune, and that's okay with me. I knew that a long time ago. But being president has cost me a fortune. a tremendous fortune like you've never seen before, but someday I'll tell you what that is. And I knew that a long time ago, because I don't do deals. All I do is focus on this country and making great deals for this country. I don't focus on making great deals for myself because I don't care anymore. So Saudi Arabia has nothing to do with me. What does have to do with me is putting America first. Wait. They're buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of things from this country. If I say we don't want to take your business, if I say we're going to cut it off, they will get the equipment, military equipment and other things from Russia and China. Russia and China would be very, very happy, because right now we're doing very well against China. We're doing very well against everybody, including Russia, and I'm going to keep it that way. And I'm not going to tell a country that's spending hundreds of billions of dollars and has helped me do one thing very importantly, keep oil prices down so that they're not going to $100 and $150 a barrel. Right now, we have oil prices in great shape. I'm not going to destroy the world economy, and I'm not going to destroy the economy for our country by being foolish with Saudi Arabia. So I think the statement, wait a minute, I think the statement was pretty obvious what I said. It means hundreds of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars of investment and product, and if you think I'm going to let Russia have that money or those things, if you think I'm going to let China make the military equipment, hey, China and Russia would love to make $100 billion worth of military equipment from Saudi Arabia. We have the contracts. They wanted those contracts. That would be a big, fat, beautiful gift to Russia and to China. They're not going to get that gift, just so you understand. It's about make America great again. It's about America first. We're going to stay with Saudi Arabia. The other thing, Saudi Arabia is probably the second biggest oil producer. They've worked with us very well. We've kept oil prices down. If you want to see oil prices go to $150 a barrel, like, by the way, Russia would love to see that, all you have to do is break up our relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Well, how about that?
Mind-boggling,
Who
isn't
knew?
it?
Who knew? Yes.
There are no contracts for $100 billion.
Well, anyway, to this morning, it has been put out by the Times that Saudi Arabia would like to acquire nuclear weapons from the United States. Now, there's a can of worms.
It sure is.
Yes.
You want another can of worms? President Trump tried to have former FBI Director James Comey and his opponent in the 2016 presidential election, Hillary Clinton, prosecuted by the Justice Department. Former White House counsel Don McGahn told Trump he didn't have the power to order his critics and political opponents to be prosecuted. Throwing political opponents in jail is exactly what Hitler did, and so does now some guy named Putin in Russia and some other assorted dictators.
And he also kills them.
McGahn had his staff prepare a memo outlining for Trump what could happen to him if he issued that kind of order, such as impeachment, and defeated the polls by an electorate enraged by such a gross undermining of our democratic form of government and constitutional protections such as freedom of speech. So Trump backed down, but there's now speculation he'll try it again, having put his loyalist Matthew Whitaker in as acting attorney general. President Trump has expressed support for Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi, who's facing a runoff election November 27th against Democrat Mike Espy. Trump's expression of support came as AT&T, Leidos, and Walmart asked Hyde-Smith to return their campaign donations in view of her racist comment that if someone invited her to a public lynching, she'd be in the front row. Mississippi, of course, has a racist history of lynchings of African Americans.
And those three civil rights workers who were murdered down there.
Ivanka Trump used her personal email account to conduct government business and violated the presidential records law by not turning over her communications to the government. Trump, as you recall, made a principal platform in his campaign of criticizing Hillary Clinton for conducting government business using her personal email account. Maybe U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts realizes that one of the things Hitler did early on in his rise to power was to attack the German court system. Remember that, John? And purge judges and install his own loyalists, because Chief Justice Roberts has come to the defense of the judiciary in the wake of a fresh attack on it by Donald Trump. Quote, "We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges," Roberts said in a statement. "What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. The independent judiciary is something we should all be thankful for."
I think this is historic. I have never recalled in my lifetime where a Chief Justice has challenged the president on something he said.
I believe this is a first.
It is.
Another
Credit
first.
to Roberts.
You ready for
Credit.
another first? When Trump went to California to visit victims of the forest fires, he didn't know where he was. He kept calling the town he was in Pleasure. It's actually called Paradise, California, or
Well,
what's
you
left
know,
of it.
it's close.
In a tweet, in a rather juvenile and stupid slur, Trump referred to Congressman Adam Schiff with two Fs, Schiff with two Fs, as, you ready for this? Adam Shit with two T's.
He did.
Talk
On
about
live
juvenile
mic.
on Twitter.
Wow.
It's in writing. You
Well,
can go read it.
The most entertaining thing on television is watching Trump videos.
Unbelievable.
Right. Now, speaking of Westchester County, we have a special on People to Be Heard this week. George Latimer held a press conference 2 weeks ago in which he outlined the complete county budget. We have cut that almost an hour press conference down to 28 minutes, edited by Keith
Baker?
Keith Baker, yes, the great Keith Baker, who I munged up.
How
but
quickly they forget, Keith.
Look, yes, but we love you, Keith. But be that as it may, you can see all in Mr. Latimer's own words, 28 minutes of the guts.
We
of the
played it. We
budget.
played a 5-minute cut of it on last
Yeah.
week's show, which really was interesting. I thought it would be dull for 5 minutes, but it moved right along, and he really does a good job of explaining. One thing that Latimer does, he communicates very well. I mean, he really does explain the complexities very nicely.
The great communicator.
Yeah, so People
Yes.
to Be Heard, you can see on many of these same stations or on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, WPCNR.com, and WPCommunitymedia.org.
And we have an advanced prediction. If we can have the envelope, please. The Tony for Best Actor in a Musical is hands down King Kong. And we have all seen the show.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, guys?
I thought it was phenomenal. It was just a phenomenal theatrical experience. I think what they have managed to do here is to take the art of stagecraft to an entirely new level. I think there has never been anything like this on Broadway. The show itself did receive somewhat mixed reviews. Variety was kind of positive on it. Rolling Stone was kind of positive. New York Times was negative. Some LA Times was negative. But what we found was that we went in there not expecting great theater. This was not Shakespeare, not Sir John Gielgud. This was a theatrical experience, and frankly, I have never experienced anything like this before. On Broadway, in any of the theme parks, anywhere.
Even
I thought
Disney.
It was just phenomenal. Some of the imagery which they managed to create on stage is just unbelievable in the sense that in one scene you had the feeling that the whole theater was bobbing up and down on waves.
Yes, you could feel the thumps of his
You had a sense that where the King Kong figure was being animated, it actually was running at high speed.
It was astounding.
And now we have a little video here with some brief snippets, and this will give you just a taste of what it was like.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you King Kong.
and that's
It
just
is
a little
breathtaking
that's a
even
little
seeing a
taste of
clip.
it.
Yes.
Christine Pitts, who plays the Fay Ray part,
Yeah.
Ann Darrow, the actress, has a voice which will. My phrase is, it'll knock your socks off and right into the upper balcony. I mean, this
And she
woman
really
is
is very
phenomenal,
believable with
phenomenal
the,
voice.
with the Kong repartee. She talks with the...
Now, you know, what can we say about the script and the songs themselves? Well, the script could have been better. The music, you know, there are no hit songs that I saw in this. You know, nothing that's going to make the top 40. But the use of the orchestrations was something I thought phenomenal for Broadway. It was scored the way a fine motion picture is scored.
And in fact, the preludes that are heard before the show, the occasional roar from backstage, really sets
I
the
thought
mood.
the choreography was excellent.
The dancers, I mean, talk about energy from dancers. It really was spectacular. And the way that the choreography in that one number where they're building a city, you had the feeling they're actually building a city on stage. I mean, this is just an incredible image that they created. King Kong got a standing ovation, right?
Right, they all rose to their feet. Amazing stuff.
And you know, in terms of a theatrical experience, it's just something that you have to experience.
It's not to be missed.
You have to go in there, you know, not expecting Shakespeare, you know, not expecting Sir John Gielgud or Katharine Hepburn on stage. But you know, as a theatrical experience, I don't think there's ever been anything like it on Broadway.
You just go out. I can't believe what I just saw, as Jack Buck once said.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a must-see. Great for cocktail party conversation, folks. You will not regret it. You will.
And
it's
you know the way they did the King Kong. Now they call it a puppet. It certainly
It's not a
not a puppet.
It's a creation.
It is a creation, and it's almost as if it was alive.
It demeans it by calling it a puppet.
You know, there was a moment there when I could swear I made eye contact with it, and there was life behind the eyes.
And the expressions on the gorilla.
Yeah.
A perfect silverback gorilla in Monster, okay? Just unbelievable. He acts, folks. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz, good night for White Plains Week and our friend Mr. Kong.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.